Bingo! The Reds shake up the lineup and win themselves a series against the Houston Astros.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? I'm Jeff. He's Steve. And on today's Locked On Reds podcast, it is brought to you by Game Time. By the way, download the Game Time app and create an account. Use that promo code Locked On to save $20 off your first purchase. But we will be talking about a little bit later on the closer situation on this Reds team and why I don't think it really matters at this point. In just a few minutes, we will discuss the starting rotation and why it feels like trust is being rebuilt. But we'll begin with the lineup and the bingo that it was that Terry Francona played on Sunday and how everything kind of fell into place as the Reds won 2 out of 3 against the Houston Astros and got right back on track, Steve, because quite frankly, after losing 8 games in a row, everybody was jumping off the Reds ship, and now they're 5 games out of first place and they're 3 games above 500. So we're right back on track. Although the lineup, needs some help.
The lineup is definitely continuing to be a work in progress. Look, the biggest surprise for me in this lineup bingo is that your guy, this is your time. You have arrived because your guy, Will Benson, leads off for the Reds. Now, granted, he goes 0 for 4. He goes 0 for 4 and doesn't draw any walks, which was the whole reason that Tito says he batted him up there, which was to draw walks. But, I say about
got hit
time.
by a pitch, though.
So he got on base. I say it's about time. It is about time that Terry Francona tried to shake some things up a little bit. The knock against Tito, there aren't very many, but the one that's been making the rounds, and we've seen friends of the podcast like Lance McAllister put this out there. We've seen it on other social media platforms. We've talked about it here. Is Terry Francona too loyal to the players on this team to a fault? I think the answer to that question is yes, that Tito sticks with guys for too long. He's admitted to this last offseason. He admitted he stuck with Matt McLain for too long in the 2-hole and didn't make adjustments when they needed to be made. So to Tito's credit, it's time to make an adjustment. He is making adjustments. The problem is there's not a lot to work with when it comes to guys you can stick in there and get a better result. But at least he's trying. Spencer Steer looks like he's turning a corner, batting average now at 246, homered again with a line drive home run shot in yesterday's game. Spencer Steer looks good. I like him in the 2-hole right now. And Elly De La Cruz continues to do Elly De La Cruz things. Batting average sits at 288. He was 3 for 4. It scored a pair of runs in this game yesterday, Jeff. Elly is very quietly just kind of doing things. He's performed really, really well. You look at his numbers over the last, we could take a small sample size and do a week. In the last week, Jeff, 367, 375, 433, and that's with no home runs. You expand that out even further and take a 2-week sample size, 15 games, 316, 375, 474, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs. Elly's doing really well.
But even if you just expand it out to the season, he's batting 288 on the season. Like, we're to the point now that he is hitting the number that I think even the old hats that like to complain about batting average are having a hard time complaining about anything with him. And for me, Terry Francona's lineup bingo that he said before the game on Saturday he wasn't going to play, I think should at some point land on him hitting leadoff. I know we've got a couple of different ideas here when it comes to changing this lineup. My idea is to just put your best hitter in the position to take the most at-bats. This has been something that we've talked about at different points throughout the last couple of years, and I don't think that he was ever in this position firmly where people could be happy about him hitting leadoff, but now he is. When you watch him take at-bats, and I'm not saying he's not striking out, but even with the strikeouts, he has been the best value at the plate from any Cincinnati Reds hitter, and it's kind of hard to argue it at this point because Sal Stewart's gone through a bit of a slump. But I still see this guy that he's able to do everything that you need. Is there a pitch that he can hit over the wall? He'll do that. Is there a pitch that he can deposit into left center field for a single and get this inning going? He can do that too. and he's been walking pretty decently so far this season. So I think ultimately, if you're going to shake up this lineup and play the bingo that Terry Francona said he wasn't going to play, then you're going to put Elly De La Cruz in the lineup as the leadoff guy, and then you kind of build everything else out from there.
The reason I don't like that, Jeff, is because you take away an opportunity from one of the better bats that can do damage in bunches and score guys. The thing you got to do is get guys on base in front of him so that he can deliver death blows with that ability that you just described. What if instead we stop overthinking this? What if we just pick a stat and we use that stat to make the lineup? What stat might we use? I'm sure you want to ask me right now.
On singles.
That is not the stat. What I would like to use is on base percentage. And let's not even make it crazy. Let's not play with splits. Let's not play with trying to worry about handedness. Let's just look at the season, look at the on base percentage, and make the lineup. Do you want to know what that lineup is, Jeff? This lineup is pretty good. If we did that, and this is with a qualifier of, a certain number of games played, Blake Dunn right now leads the team in on base percentage. I'm not batting him leadoff right now.
Like 5 games.
But I'm going the rest of the way, and I'm saying your leadoff hitter is Dane Myers at 371. These are all on-base percentage numbers, by the way, folks. Dane Myers at 371, batting first. Batting second would be J.J. Bleday at 362. Batting third would be your guy, Will Benson, at 352. Batting fourth in the cleanup spot would be Elly De La Cruz at 345, followed by Nate Lowe at 333, followed by Sal Stewart at 329, followed by Spencer Steer at 324, followed by Matt McLean at 311, and then the number 9 hitter would be Tyler Stevenson at 291. I will take that lineup right now and let it sort itself out later, but that gets the best chance to have guys on base in front of Elly De La Cruz, Nate Lowe, and Sal Stewart, who have the ability to get you a runs in bunches if the table is set. Why not run that out there? Because it can't be any worse than what you've been running out there.
It'd be kind of hilarious that the top third of the Reds lineup would be their outfield, which has been everybody's biggest complaint about this team. But that's hard to argue because this team was on base all day against the Houston Astros, albeit it was a bullpen day. And I understand that, teams do this every so often as part of their season-long strategy. That tends to work against the Reds. I don't know if you know this or not, Steve, but bullpen days have shut down the Reds in the past. So I was glad to see that they were at least able to push that back on the opposing team here. I don't love the fact that you're limiting Elly De La Cruz on the at-bats. I think that the only argument that I have against this is he's got to get more. Maybe you flip Will Benson and Elly De La Cruz so that Elly hits third and Will Benson hits fourth. That way we guarantee that Elly hits in the first inning, no matter what. But other than that, I think that the important part with this is that they try other things. And I know that there's probably some folks that are saying, but I thought we weren't splitting Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart. How's that gone? Like when those two guys get shut down, this whole lineup goes to sleep. You've got to create something else with what the Reds have. And right now, they have a lot of guys who are in the middle of slumps. Like, I was so happy to see that Tyler Stevenson got an RBI on Sunday's game, because you talk about a dude that needed an RBI like right now, it was Tyler Stevenson, because he has had a rough season and it hasn't broken out yet. It seems to be stuck in neutral for him. And then you've got guys like Matt McLean, who they said on the broadcast on Sunday, they're like, he looks better at the plate. Maybe, but I think we're splitting hairs here. Like, on base wise, he's been okay, but I think that he's got to get the thing going with the bat, because if I'm an opposing pitcher right now, I'm throwing everything in the strike zone and I'm daring him to beat me. He's just not done that yet. So I think that there's definitely some points in this lineup that need to get restarted in some way. And I really hope that Terry Francona does play the lineup bingo that he doesn't want to do, because at this point, The whole Reds lineup's a gamble. Might as well just play bingo with the thing.
To your point about splitting up Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart in the last 15 games, Jeff, 183, 234, 317. And if you want to pull that out to the last 30 games, it's 212, 277, 449. Now he does have 8 home runs over that month, but the rest of the numbers just really aren't there. And the last 2 weeks have been really bad. So I don't think there's much of a problem in splitting them up, especially in that lineup I proposed. You're putting Nathaniel Lowe behind Elly De La Cruz. So there's still a guy coming up with the potential to beat you with the long ball. So the reasons hold true. Elly will still see pitches because the next guy has the ability to take you deep. So Elly will see pitches.
The lineup is the crazy part. And we'll keep talking about this as we move forward. Obviously, long season ahead, but especially as the Reds welcome the Washington Nationals to town, who hit the cover off the ball. And so that's going to be a tough series for them. But the reason that they beat the Astros was because they finally got back to pitching. And I feel like trust is maybe turning around just a little bit with the starting rotation, thanks to the last 2 performances. I want to tell you about how you need to get down to your next game. No, I'm not telling you when. I'm not telling you who. I'm not telling you which game to pick. I'm just telling you you need to use Game Time to get there. I have so much experience with this because Game Time makes buying tickets easy. Whether you're going to Great American Ballpark or maybe you're following the Reds on the road, Game Time has you covered. With all-in pricing up front, there is no surprises, and they show you your view from your seat. What I love to do, and what I do a lot whenever Steve is in town as well, and Steve will vouch for this when he's on the road doing all kinds of stuff, you can find the best deals close to Game Time. That's why they call it Game Time. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. We'd like to invite you to become an Everydayer Club member. You get ad-free episodes. You get a group chat talking with not only Steve and myself and Tim Daniel, but every other Locked On host out there, talking trash with all the other NL Central teams as well. That's all over at lockedonreds.supercast.com. Link is in the description of today's episode down below. All right, Steve, with this lineup, it's really, for me, mostly been about the pitching when it came to this series win. And honestly, throughout the 8-game losing streak that looked horrible, I think you could argue pitching was the big reason why they lost those games, whether it was the walk-offs in Chicago, whether it was that absolutely non-competitive, destructive blowout on Friday night against this Astros team that made us all wonder if they could win a series again. It's all been about bad pitching. Well, they got 2 great performances from their starters on Saturday and Sunday with Chase Burns and Andrew Abbott. And then the bullpen really buckling down and doing its thing. But I want to focus first on Abbott and Burns, because Burns has been the guy that's kind of paced this starting rotation so far this year that has missed Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. Lodolo's back. His first start stunk, but we kind of said, all right, give him a minute to get back into the groove of things. That's understandable. The big part for me is the resurgence of Andrew Abbott, because with him back to being his 2025 self, the starting rotation starts to take shape a little bit more.
Yeah, there's a couple things. To your point on Chase Burns, just very, very quickly, Chase Burns quietly right now leads the team in WAR. You may or may not know that, but he right now leads the Reds in WAR. And that tells you everything you need to know. He's been the one constant, the one stabilizer through the course of the season. Andrew Abbott started yesterday.
I'm sorry, leads the National League in WAR. At least up until Sunday, that might have changed.
That's even better. I didn't look at that, but I'm looking at the team numbers right now, and he leads the team in WAR. So the other piece with Andrew Abbott, to your point, yesterday's start was the first time. And you know what? Let me just make mention real quick, everybody. I apologize for my Kermit the Frog voice that's going on here. I'm trying to get through this without squeaking a lot. Thanks for bearing with me. I appreciate you guys. But Andrew Abbott yesterday, that was the first his first start of the year, Jeff, where I looked at it and I'm like, that's Andrew Abbott. Not there's flashes of Andrew Abbott, not there's hints of Andrew Abbott, not that's the guy that could turn into the Andrew Abbott that we know. This was the first start where I watched him pitch and I'm like, that's Andrew Abbott. Finally, he has made an appearance, and the numbers support that. 6 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He's not overpowering a lot of guys, but he was in command of the zone. He wasn't walking a bunch of dudes. His walk rate has been atrocious. This was the first time the real Andrew Abbott stood up and took the ball.
And I applauded him on a couple of different cases. There were a couple of at-bats where he went to a 3-ball count rather quickly and battled back beautifully. The only 1 walk that he had was, I think it was a 5-pitch walk, and that worried me a little bit, but he bounced back very quickly and made that inning completely a non-starter for the Astros. But overall, like you're right. There have been starts where I'm like, oh, he looks better. Oh, things look like they're riding the ship a little bit here with him. This was the first one that I'm like, dude, Andrew Abbott shoved, period, plain and simple. And it felt as though all of his pitches were working exactly as he wanted them to work. He wasn't having to forget something and focus more on these other things. It was that he threw whatever he wanted whenever he needed, and he got the right pitch in there. He struck out Yordan Alvarez, who has been one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball to begin this season. Multiple times, not just once, but twice. And we're talking about a dude that has absolutely destroyed American League pitching and any other pitching, quite frankly, that has faced him. We saw it on Friday. He was destroying the Reds on Friday. But Andrew Abbott really shut him down. And I feel as though we're going to see that more and more. And again, there's probably going to be some people that are like, well, left on left. Of course, that happens. Yordan Alvarez has been over his career, one of the better left on left hitters in Major League Baseball. So he's a guy that knows what he's doing whenever the platoon splits are against him. But Andrew Abbott really took that and ran with it and made a good outing for him. And that's been the biggest problem for me with the pitching staff so far. I get it. Brady Singer has kind of disappointed to this point, but Brady Singer has always, in a best case scenario, he's the number 4 or number 5 starter. And especially with the way that Chase Burns is pitching, he is certainly the number 5 starter. If you have a rotation of Green, Lodolo, Abbott, Burns, and Singer, that's your number 5 guy. So, okay. It's been everything else. The Rhett Lauder problems, which he hit the IL on Sunday, waiting for a corresponding move. I thought that was weird, by the way. They said before the game that Rhett Lauder was going on the IL, but no move had actually been made. So I guess we'll see that before Tuesday's game. Whatever. I guess they couldn't get anybody up from Louisville in time. But you have Brandon Williamson, who's going to be out for a long time. He's on the 60-day IL. And so we're kind of wondering a little bit, how much more are we going to see at Chase Petty? Kind of feels like he's getting at least one more start. And then Nick Lodolo, can he get his season going? But all of that being said, you can stabilize this rotation with Burns and Abbott and getting some better performances from Brady Singer.
You know, it's funny you're talking about Chase Petty and our trust in pitching. This next call up for Chase Petty is going to be a multi-start call up. Just the way the tea leaves are falling right now, with Lauder going on, Williamson on a 60, Green not available.
Probably why they waited to
July. I think that's why they're waiting. When he comes back up to make that next start, he's going to be in the rotation for a little while. So, you know, while you were away, Tim Daniel and I talked about that. We felt like that last start earned him at least another look. Another start, and I kind of wanted the Reds to keep him around, drop him in before that Lodolo start, and then send him down after a second start. They didn't do that. He's going to get those starts now, and he's really the question mark. The two things within this rotation, the question marks now, the biggest ones are, can Chase Petty be a reliable 5th starter in a short-term view, in a very narrow short-term between now and let's say 3 weeks, 4 weeks before Rhett Lauder comes back? Can Chase Petty be a reliable 5th starter? And can Brady Singer become a solid 4th starter? Because he's been wildly inconsistent. He's been at times ineffective, and he has not been that reliable guy that goes out there every fifth day and you just know exactly what you're going to get and you can count on it. He hasn't been that guy this year, and he needs to figure it out. He's the next one. Andrew Abbott figured it out. It looks like we saw the real Andrew Abbott in yesterday's game. Next up is Brady Singer. Brady Singer needs to bring that same energy and find his consistency so that the Reds can rely on him, because you can survive having a wild card in Chase Petty as your number 5 starter while you're waiting for these injuries to play out. What you can't survive is your 4th and 5th guy getting blown up every time through the rotation and the bullpen having to cover it every single time. That cannot be the strategy if the Reds want to stay in this division that suddenly has decided it's going to be the most competitive division in baseball, where everybody's going to win together and everybody's going to lose together and the standings don't move. That's what's happening. So the Reds cannot afford to run a 4th and 5th starter out there that just can't get the job done.
To your point on Brady Singer, 8 starts, 2 of them are quality starts so far this season. That has to be better. That's just inexcusable, because a quality start is 6 innings of 3 earned runs or less. That's it. And that's a 4.5 ERA.
It's not a high threshold. To get a quality start is not a high threshold.
No, and that's what we're asking for from him, especially from his spot right now in the rotation. That's what the Reds need. And I will continue to bang the drum for 2026 that as long as you have a good week at the right time, then you can win the NL Central. And that's all you got to do. You got to make sure you're in that position. And I think that the Reds can be there, especially with the way that the starting rotation is moving. There's one other thing, though, Steve, because we've seen it's not even roulette. It used to be roulette in years past. It's not a roulette anymore, but we have seen the bullpen turn, where they had a really good month of April. They started off May really bad. They had a really nice weekend against the Astros, and they don't have a closer. And I don't think that that's a problem. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find the perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why the Confetti Craze 5-hour energy shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic taste that you remember, but with the tasty caffeine boost and 0 sugar. It's a quick way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. Look, when it comes to getting the energy, getting that sweet tooth craving, all of it covered, Confetti Craze 5-hour energy is the way to go. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. You can have your cake and sip it too, minus the sugar guilt. The Funfetti flavor is back on 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Crack open Confetti Craze 5-hour energy shots today. I invite you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow me on X at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. I'm also on TikTok at that username as well. You can follow Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs over on X. And you can follow the show at Lockdown Reds everywhere you get your social media. All right, Steve, with Emilio Pagán going down, there's a lot of folks out there that are like, oh boy, who's going to close? Who's going to get save opportunities? Is it going to be Graham Ashcraft? Is it going to be Tony Santillan? Pierce Johnson got a save opportunity on Saturday and ran with it, quite frankly. He pitched pretty well. And I think that underscores the point for me, because I think that this is a situation where Terry Francona has a group of guys that he trusts in big moments, and he throws one of those guys. It doesn't have to be a singular individual. And especially when you look at this group that has fluctuated quite a bit for one reason and one reason only, is because they keep walking people. If they'd stop doing that, they'd be a lot better. But this is a attack this. We always say, closer by committee when it comes to this. But honestly, in lieu of a better term, that's what the Reds are right now, and I'm okay with it.
I think if this Pagán thing drags on, and it's going to be months, not weeks, yes, folks. Hamstrings. I for the everydayers, you will know, I did a whole week-long series on hamstrings when Jonathan India was hurt, and nobody would listen to Steve, and Steve ended up being spot on right. So let me reiterate, Hamstrings are one of the hardest things to come back from. This is going to be a problem, especially when you have a player that won't tell you the truth about it. And Pagán has demonstrated that he will not tell the Reds the truth about his hamstring. So this is going to be a thing that gets protracted out a little bit. So
before or after the trade deadline? Before or after the trade deadline? Do you think he comes back?
Maybe just before. That gets us into July. I think that's probably a ballpark area where we would see him right around the trade deadline, because they're going to really have to baby him back. So assuming that it does drag out in that way, I think Tony Santillan is going to get a majority of the looks at the save opportunities. I think even though it hasn't gone that way here early, I think that's where it will land in hindsight when you're looking back at who got what save opportunities. Santillan will get the most of them. Ashcraft will be number 2 in that list. And every once in a while, you will see Pierce Johnson. You will not see Connor Phillips. You will not see the rest of these guys. When Caleb Ferguson comes back, he'll be much more in a setup lane than he will be a closer lane. That's kind of how I see this bullpen playing out. And I'm okay with that. I prefer Graham Ashcraft in that fireman. Use him when you need him. Just bring him in because he's been so good at coming in and slamming the door at what's going on. So I like Ashcraft in that role. And then by default, that means Santillan gets more looks in the 9th inning. And I'm okay with that because I like Tony Santillan there in those high leverage situations of the 8th and 9th inning. So I think that's how it's going to go. Don't get me wrong, Ashcraft is going to get looks, but I would much rather point at Graham Ashcraft in the 7th inning when there's a potential for things to get out of hand than to save him and say, well, we need him for the 9th. No, you need to deal with the problem in the 7th. And Graham Ashcraft is the best reliever on this team suited to come in whenever there's a problem and shut it down.
And I hear what people are saying right now, but Tony Santillan just got destroyed. How can you expect him to be getting those save opportunities? He had a bad hot dog. All right. We're waiting on the Pepto-Bismol to settle his stomach. He's going to be okay. He's going to be fine. I think we see him get the next save opportunity. I'm with you. Now he is part of that group.
This is why you can't eat day old fry box, man.
You can't eat day old.
It's got to be fresh.
Trust me. I know this. He is part of that group that needs to stop walking so many dang batters. But outside of that, I think he's done a good job of limiting the damage from those walks on mostly basis. Again, people are going to throw Friday in my face. I understand that. It's a what have you done for me lately league. He's going to be better because I know that he is the best relief pitcher of this group. It's him, it's Graham Ashcraft, and I think that Caleb Ferguson is going to have an argument when he comes back. Pierce Johnson is the guy who is the best at limiting walks right now. So there's an argument for him to be in there as well. But the point is that Terry Francona's got this group of guys, and he doesn't have to name anybody from this group because, number one, you're going to put undue pressure on that guy if you name him right now. You're just going to have this revolving door of prove it to me. And then the moment that Tony Santillan takes the reins that we expect him to take, it's going to be quite obvious to everybody that he's going to be the closer. There's an argument for him to be the closer even when Emilio Pagán returns, albeit there's going to be some
that. Right. Yeah. We talked about that before the injury, and we talked about that last offseason before they re-signed Pagán. Pagán, that we thought Tony Santillan should be the first guy in line to assume the closer role.
And the biggest thing that we were worried about is, all right, dude pitched every other day last year. What's he going to look like this year? I feel like they have handled him perfectly to this point because his velocity is back up to where it normally is. The movement, the spin rate, everything looks good. So physically, everything looks okay, at least from our vantage point. Don't know if there's something behind the scenes, but there's been nothing reported like that. So he's good to go. It's just, what's he look like in his next outing? I think as long as he gets the walks in check, he's going to start taking that mantle on that we expect. But this is the funny thing about bullpens, right? Like, as happy as we were and as excited as we were of all the work that Nick Krall did to bring in these guys and all this other stuff, relief pitching is still a fickle thing. And so we're going to see those bad games. And that's why you're going to look at guys' stats. And when they pop up on the screen on the television broadcast, or when they're up on the big board, if you're at the stadium and you see that ERA number and you go, what's this guy doing here? ERA and relief pitchers. It doesn't mean anything. You got to look at strikeout to walk rate. That's where the Reds struggle with the walk rate. But I think that those are going to start to come down.
One more guy we didn't talk about that I just want to make mention of because I see this in the comment section and I see it on the socials. TJ Antone. Look, I love TJ Antone. I love what he's doing. I love how he's looked. He's not exactly the same pitcher, obviously, that he was before the Tommy Johns. Not that he has evolved after every
curveball does still
out of necessity. Good. He looks pretty good. He's not going to be the closer, and I don't think he should get save situations. I don't think he needs that added pressure on top of the pressure. I think you cook with TJ Antone as a 7th inning guy, as a 6th inning guy earlier innings. Right. And then you set up this rotation in the back end with the guys we just talked about. I love TJ Antone. I'm so excited that he's at the big league level. I'm excited that he's having success. He looked great yesterday, struck out 2 guys in his inning of work, looked really good. But let's be really careful with the guy coming off his 3rd Tommy John. Keep him out of those 9th inning opportunities.
And to your point about Graham Ashcraft being like the perfect fireman right now, like TJ Antone can almost be your earlier game fireman. Like you can hang on to Graham
Ashcraft. Bridge guy.
Be the late game fireman. Because I've seen this, and I had a conversation with somebody the other day that they were worried whenever Jose Franco was sent down. Like, now they don't have a long relief guy. I think if you have a good enough bullpen, you don't have to worry about a guy that eats multiple innings. We talked about this over the last couple of years where it's like they had Nick Martinez and they had a couple of different dudes that could go, 2-3 innings out of the bullpen for them. Ideally, you don't want that. You don't need that. You just have a bullpen of guys that can get you 3 outs when you need them to do that, and you can move on to the next dude. And then on top of that, hopefully your starting rotation is not providing you with multiple opportunities in which you need a guy to come out of the bullpen and throw 2 or 3 innings.
There are guys that can give you multiple innings that are here right now. You look at, Antone's not one of them, but Graham Ashcraft at times could give you 2 innings if you really needed him to. Good Connor Phillips can give you 2 innings, and bad Connor Phillips throws enough pitches for 2 innings every time he's in a ball game anyway. So we already know that he's capable of doing it. Sam Maul can give you 2. Right. Sam Maul can give you 2 innings, not on a consistent basis, but on times when you really need to eat a couple innings. Sam Maul can do it as well. So there's guys already on this roster that can do it. I think Pierce Johnson, the amount of curveballs that he throws, he could give you 2 innings. Now, he wouldn't be available the next day. You couldn't throw him on back-to-back days if he gives you a multi-inning outing, but he could do it. So I agree with you. I don't think that there's as much importance on having a guy in the bullpen right now that can come out there like that Nick Martinez role, right? Or what Brett Sooner was doing at times for the Reds when he was here. I don't think they necessarily need that now that there's a higher level of quality in the arms that you have out there. And there's guys that you can stretch a little bit because they won't be available the next day, but you still have good arms for the next day that can step in and fill that role.
Yeah, and I think that the pitching staff will continue to get better. We've seen some struggles early on from starters, from relievers, and there's some things that I think are going to right the ship here because I believe in Derek Johnson. I don't believe that all of a sudden he just stopped knowing how to make his pitching staff good. And I think that he will continue to do that as the season moves along. And the great thing about this is coming off 2 out of 3, we can feel a lot better about this team. 3 games over 500, 5 games out of first place, thanks to a 2-game little back-to-back streak here for the Cubbies up top, losing streak there for them. And as we move along, the Reds are off today. Washington coming in for 3 games beginning on Tuesday night. We'll get you set for that series on tomorrow's podcast. We'll tell you about the pitching matchups, why we're excited to see this Reds lineup go up against a guy that right now is looking like a just crazy good hitter in James Wood. That's all on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast. So thanks for checking out today's. Make sure that you're subscribed. That way you don't miss anything that we've got going on for you each and every day. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonreds.supercast.com to learn more about that. Get an ad-free feed and group chat on Discord. So much more. Again, the link's in the description to learn more about that. Now, make sure you hang on, and we'll send you on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming feed. Or if you're listening, make sure you check out Locked On MLB. We've got you covered around the league with so many different perspectives. That's over at Locked On MLB. But as for Steve and myself, we will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Oh my God, I made it. Wasn't sure.
Kermit the Frog here.
Was running out of steam there at the end, buddy.